What up, YouTube Live? How's it going? Twice in a day, YouTube live stream. As you all know, every Sunday I do a recap or review videos of The Walking Dead new episodes. So tonight I just watched season 9, episode 6, titled "Who Are You Now?" directed by Larry Teng. And of course, this is what happens. Basically, the events that happen after Rick Grimes had been written off the show. Let's just put it that way. Oh, by the way, this review contains spoilers, as always. So, spoiler alert. As you all know, at the end of last week's episode, Rick Grimes pretty much survived after really badly wounded. The character Anne took him on the helicopter to God knows where, and I'm speculating that the fate of Rick Grimes will be, we will get to see what happens to him, maybe in that trilogy movie that they're developing for AMC, the trilogy movie focusing on Rick Grimes. So time jumps, all right, few years ahead now. Um, Judith, I don't know, I want to say around 9 years of age, probably. Middle school, junior kind of age. But uh, she has the fighting spirit of her dad, and she's rocking the hat, and she has a little sword of her own. I guess she takes that after her mother. And so at the end of last week's episode, she she helps rescue these. I want to. How many? Four people, I believe. I have my notes here. Four people. Yeah. Oh well, five people. One of them is wounded. Um, from those zombies, from the walkers. So there you go. That's what happened at the end of last week's episode. So now season 6. Some say it jumped about 5 years ahead. I believe yes. Well, let's just put it that way. Before we get to what I think of the episode overall, episode 6, let's note some of the interesting things that the show or the writers did to make the characters look older. for for one, Carol now has that bright silver fox long hair. She's always had, kind of like a white blonde kind of hair, but now it's all long, almost to the middle of her back, I believe. And Michonne, her hairstyle is longer on one side, covering her face, which I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty badass. Let's see what else. Oh, freaking! Don't forget Eugene. Eugene has that long locks, man. Woo! Love it, love it. It has that Native American feel to it too, so it's pretty cool. Let's see what else is different. Well, Father Gabe is rocking that hat. Um, I think it's kind of cool. I don't think he's worn a hat before, or maybe he did. But anyway, I like that look. Um, Rosita has the braids, pretty cool. Um, and here's also something new. Apparently, during the time jump, romance blossomed between Father Gabe and Rosita. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? So we don't get to see that happen, obviously. Another thing that we don't get to see because of the time jumps is the fact that Michonne gave birth to the son that I believe it's a son, right? Well, to the child that she had with Rick. That's their love child. So now that child is a toddler. So we don't get to see the whole birthing process and that whole thing. Maybe one of these days, maybe they'll have flashback scenes, but at this point, we don't get to see that. So those are the things that the writers did to make the characters look older or look different. You know, maybe change up their hairstyle, change up their clothing, change up the way they walk, whatever. And Daryl apparently is, man, he looks like a vagabond. He's out there like a freaking, like a mountain man, just like hunting out in the wild. It's just, I mean, I'm sure he's still part of the group, but you know, there's a one point where he seems shocked at like looking at or staring at Carol and everybody else. So those are the things I note first. Let's see what else I have on my here. Um, okay, let's talk a bit about the five people that got rescued by Judith. Now, one of my observations about the character of Judith, and I think she is played by a little actress named, I want to get this name right, Kaylee Fleming. It's nothing against Kaylee Fleming, okay, but it's so it's so awkward for me to watch whenever I watch either on movies or on TV shows when kids don't talk or behave like kids. You know what I'm saying? I totally get the. I think what the writers are trying to do is make Judith seem like an old soul, like she's wise beyond her years. But it just looks weird. It looks like those kids from the horror movies. You know those creepy kids from horror movies that you see, where they talk funny or they talk like serious, like they talk like grown ups. They don't talk like kids, and it just bugs me whenever movies or TV shows do that. And that's the thing now. That's what we have with this junior Judith. She's not even a teenager yet, and it's just like what. Come on, a kid should behave like a kid. But anyway, obviously she has a big heart. She's an idealist. Obviously, uh, she is more like Carl. You remember Carl? Carl is that guy, the one that sees the good in people. The one's like, oh, let's sing Kumbaya. Hey, Robert, like the kids from the Children of the Corn. Exactly. So it seems like Judith takes after her big brother, and the line that got me really in the heart in tonight's episode is when Judith says to Michonne, like, my memory of my father and my memory of my big brother, you know, they're fading with each passing day. You know, I don't want it to fade, but as I grow up, the memory I had, or the little memory I had of them, it's going, and gone. And I totally get that though, because she lost them when she was a toddler. How much do you remember? I mean, do you remember much of what you experienced when you were 5 or 4 years old? Hell no, I didn't. I mean, I don't remember, much of what I experienced at that age. So I totally get it. You don't retain much when you're that age. So that really gets me. That's a good line, in my opinion. Let's see my notes here as well. Okay. The plot or the subplot regarding Ezekiel and Carol and Henry. Henry's now a teenager, and obviously he's very emotional. That's why he um, easily jumps into that trap, of that woman yelling for help. Because he's like, oh, I want to be the hero. It's like, oh my God, he's one of those kids. Like, I gotta prove myself. Oh, somebody needs help. I'm there. I'm Superman, without even like checking whether or not it's safe to do so. He's like feelings first. So I totally get that. A lot of when we were teenagers, we act on emotion basis back in the day. Um, but I like that subplot because they encounter. Do you remember the what's left of the Saviors, led by that guy who played the director Billy from Entourage? My fellow Entourage series fans out there, he played this director of the Medellin movie that Vincent Chase was in. Well, anyway, they look like hobos in this one. Holy crap! I feel kind of bad, because I mean, on one hand, these guys, the saviors, they are so wired in a way that, like, like those bad boys. Like, I don't want. Hey, we can handle. We can take care of our own. We don't need you to help us. You know, um, but at the same time, the way they handle or take care of their own shit is by being bullies and by stealing other people's stuff, um, terrorizing. So, but at the same time, I feel kind of sorry for them because obviously their living condition is very poor, man, and I don't think they even bathe. Holy crap! Do you see how they look like shit, man. So I feel bad. I gotta tell you, I empathize with them. But they encounter Carol and Henry. They ambush them, and at one point there's a conflict happening, and it resulted in Henry getting physically hurt. Well, long story short, um, Carol gets her payback, and it's in the most brutal way. And the reason why I said earlier why I like that subplot is because it reminds us of how vicious Carol can be. Now, if you have followed this show since the beginning, just like I did, you would know the evolution of Carol. Remember? Carol is that same woman who kills that one kid by telling her to look at the flower. Just look at the flowers. Look at the flowers. And Carol is that same woman who acted like Rambo, rescuing Rick Grimes and the gang from Terminus. So Carol, whenever she wants to be, she can be really cold blooded. She can be really ruthless. If she's cornered, she will push back. That's the kind of and she, you know, the idea of burning somebody alive like what she does tonight, that, and she walks away like a freaking action hero, walking away from explosion. That says something about Carol. That is a cold, heartless bitch, man. So you don't want to cross Carol. You do not want to get on her bad side because she is capable of just about anything, and that reminds us of the dark side of Carol. It is, when I see that, when she burns those saviors, I was like, oh yes, of course, of course, of course, Carol has the ability to do that. Why am I not surprised? Now, the Father Gabe and Rosita thing, and then the whole thing with Eugene, um, having a crush with Rosita. To me, that's minuscule. To me, that's just the show's way of comic relief, getting you to chuckle a little bit. Um, Obviously, there's not going to be happening anything about between Eugene and Rosita. So, but it does end. Okay, before we end with Rosita and Eugene, because that's how the episode ends. Let's get back to the five survivors, the five people that Judith saves or rescues. Um, there's a council voting. It's like a freaking court deciding whether or not they could stay. And long story short, if you've seen the episode tonight, there's that one woman among them who is pretty much a hard ass, very stubborn, and she gets softened up by the fact that she witnesses Michonne has a kid. Otherwise, who knows what she would have done to Michonne. She would probably try to kill her. Um, so obviously, there's a good side to her, so that's a good thing. And it ends with Michonne trying to take them to Hilltop, so that they could stay at Hilltop instead of Alexandria. Which begs the question: okay, so who runs Hilltop now? Remember, we are under the impression that not only Rick is the one leaving, but Maggie is also leaving because the actress Lauren Cohen has a new show on ABC. I don't know when it's gonna premiere, but it's a new show with Scott Foley. So now that the time has jumped a few years ahead, is Maggie still the leader of Hilltop, or is it Tara, or is it Jesus? So we're gonna find out soon enough in next week's episode. If if it's no longer Maggie that's heading the community, what happened to her? During those the years, the missing years that we don't get to see. Um, that's also my other question. Uh, but back to the episode tonight. Obviously, Michonne, who is she's already fixed on not letting the survivors stay. She's fixed on like kicking them out once one of them is healed. But obviously, Judy's heart of gold, and maybe Michonne is moved by like what would Rick Grimes do? WWRGD, right? And now she has this little figurine that reminds her of Rick. So WWRGD, and she comes to the decision: hey, Rick Grimes would want them to stay, and Judith is very happy about that. It's such a heartwarming scene. Quick side note: Dan Fogler, the actor Dan Fogler, who is part of those five survivors. Again, as I mentioned in last week's episode, dude, I'm so happy for Dan Fogler. Um, I interviewed him a couple of years ago for an independent movie that he did. Um, Fantastic guy, one of the coolest actors alive, very friendly, fan friendly, not a jerk whatsoever. So I'm really happy in the fact that this season he's in this season 9 of The Walking Dead, and he's got that new movie, Fantastic Beasts 2, Crimes of Grindelwald. He's back in that role. So it's been a great season for him, and yeah, pretty happy for the guy. Okay, so we'll see the Hilltop. Last but not least, it ends with Rosita and Eugene running away from the walkers. Now, Eugene breaks his leg, and here's the thing though. The walkers are still far off, far away. Now, walkers walk really, really slow. Even if you broke your leg, if you have a crutch and if you have somebody next to you carrying you or maybe helping you walk, I think you would still outpace or outrun those slow walkers, in my opinion. But it's the Walking Dead show, so they gotta make it seem as if the walkers walk really, really fast and can catch up to Eugene and Rosita. So they end with Rosita and Eugene covering themselves with mud, hoping to God that the walkers don't recognize or don't spot them. I, did that ever happen in previous seasons? I remember that. I think the trick or one way to trick the walkers is to cover yourself with lots of blood and body organs or zombie blood, right? That's usually how you trick them. Mud. I think this is the first time I see that. I was like, it looks like it's working though, but we don't know. What's creepy is that I think maybe my hearing is getting old, but let me know if you guys heard the same thing I did in this episode tonight. I swear to God, I thought I heard some zombie saying, "Hey, don't let them get away." I was like, "Holy crap! I didn't know they could talk." So it ends with that. It's gonna be pretty cool to see what happens. Overall, my thought of tonight's episode 6, it is very interesting watching The Walking Dead without Rick Grimes. Um, Number one, it's just that's my overall reaction. It's and because it's not tonight's episode, it's not set right after the event of Robert says you use mud when you're fighting the predator. That's right. That's what Arnold does in the movie The Predator. Thank you for that, Robert. So because the episode tonight is not, or it doesn't take place, or it doesn't pick up right after the events of last week's episode, because the time jumps. Um, because of that, there's no focus on grieving process, or they don't dedicate the episode to Rick Grimes from start to finish. It's not like everybody sharing their story about Rick Grimes, or remembering, oh, that this one time or that one time I had with Rick. So I think that's okay, right? Um, it's okay if we have an episode like that, but it's so okay to also move on from that. So I'm okay with that. Number two, again, I'm really really bugged by Judith talking like an adult. Especially when with her conversation with Negan. I was like, it's like two grown-ups have been talking to each other. Like even Judith has that adult wit that makes Negan crack up. And people, you might say like, "Hey, Rama, she's just wise for her age. That's all." But it's still, oh man, a kid. Let's talk like a kid. um, but maybe zombie apocalypse forces her to grow up faster than she should. So maybe one can argue that. Uh, but yeah, it's a fascinating episode. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts about it. I don't have really strong opinion about or for or against certain things. Um, I do notice though, one last note, that during the council meeting, some of the questions that the council members asked the survivors, um, I noticed that they're not the three questions that Rick Grimes used to ask, the person whenever he wants to take a person in. Do you remember those three questions, right? He always asks um, anybody that he encounters, to find out whether or not that person is worthy of being or joining his group. So I was expecting that. I was expecting those three questions, but apparently that's not the case. Um, yeah, fascinating episode. Glad they time jumps. So now we see the characters in a different light, and yeah, this will do until we see the Rick Grimes trilogy movie to see what happens to him. All right, that's it. That's my long rant, my review of The Walking Dead season 9 episode 6, titled "Who Are You Now? Who are you? Who?" Share your thoughts about this review in the comment section below, and as always, subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you can get notified whenever I post new videos. And if you like this channel and you want to help support it, please do so at patreon.com/ramascreen. All right, good night. Let's rock this.